Toni Boucher. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam President. Madam President, this is a very important evening and a difficult one for many of us. We have been experiencing this fall some historic hurricanes throughout the country in Texas and Florida, but Connecticut has been experiencing a hurricane of its own, a Category 5 financial hurricane that has been blowing strongly in the faces of Connecticut's taxpayers. It's been trying to all the members that serve in public office. It has been a most difficult time. You know, the budget impasse that we've been experiencing went on for an unnecessarily long time. And it's unfortunate because it didn't have to be. We could have settled this in September. Although Connecticut still remains until this evening the only state in the union without a budget, and has gotten some fairly bad press as a result of it, we had a Republican budget that actually passed with Democratic support here in the Senate and then again in the House. And all that was needed was a governor's signature. But instead of accepting the people's will, the administration vetoed it in almost a partisan fashion when our schools, our towns were sitting and waiting and on the edge of their seat at great risk, some schools even delaying schools, some sending out layoff notices, and really causing a great deal of fear in our communities. It also brought many warnings from credit agencies that the lack of a budget could cause further downgrades that they had done. But through all of this upheaval, there was a budget that could be used as a template for further action. And this is what we're deliberating on this evening. After many weeks of very intensive negotiations and the amazing amount of stress being put on our staff that were working nearly 24 hours a day, we are about to embark on something that is fairly historic. The financial condition in Connecticut is something that everybody is feeling now, and it's so dire that major compromises have been essential in crafting what we're looking at. And as legislators, we've been elected to do a job. The state cannot continue to run by executive order while schools, municipalities, nonprofits are being starved. It would not be responsible of us to continue in this way. It is now time to get this done, and we need to do it, we can only do it in a bipartisan fashion and with a veto-proof majority. That's yet to be seen because I don't know that any of us in the circle know exactly what the final vote count is going to be. But it does prevent, it seems, two top budget objectives that the administration had put out, and that is cutting funding to suburban schools and passing a $400 million teacher pension cost onto towns that really had everyone alarmed. This would have caused municipalities to raise property taxes to historic levels, and although we know that the state income tax is a deterrent, our property taxes is almost a bigger piece of the challenges that are presented to our taxpayers, and many, and I've gotten letters, we've gotten them, those goodbye letters that break your heart. One recently I got from friends, individuals that we've gone to church with for decades that are moving to Delaware, not even to Florida, that are saving $12,000 a year just in property taxes by that move. Instead, this budget would eliminate that threat, and it accomplishes it without a new tax on second homes that was originally proposed, a cell phone tax, the expansion of the sales tax, or the creation of tolls. And you know all how I feel about tolls being enacted in Connecticut. Tolls on top of so many other very high taxes, including one of the highest gas taxes in the country. Now, this action taken tonight by no means completely eliminates the financial challenges ahead for Connecticut. We know that. But it is a major step forward, and it brings stability to our towns and our school budgets throughout the state. And as with any compromise. No party got everything from this budget. And boy, do I disagree with a lot of this budget. And so do many of you. But compromise is essential to removing the barriers that prevent the state from moving forward. Now, we're going to have, and even now, probably as we're talking about this, we're going to have armchair quarterbacks that are taking pot shots or will for compromising on some of the accomplishments that were achieved in a budget that was vetoed, the Republican budget that got some widespread support, particularly by the public. However, those critics that are there are not the ones with the responsibility to make these decisions. You all are, we are the ones. They're not here in Hartford until very late at night or early in the morning. They're not taking time away from their families or their jobs that are their livelihood to serve the people of the state. I have been incredibly torn. In fact, I'm torn right now. I was torn in the Finance Committee that we just had this afternoon. And in fact, I voted no to be able to think and look and read at the totality of the budget that we have before us, so I can weigh what it funds, what it defunds. But Connecticut is a critical juncture, and walking away would assure the financial ruin of our state, and to allow so many communities to be stripped of their education funding and the inevitable massive increases in property tax would have been an unconscionable dereliction of duty, I believe. It also would have meant not getting some of the important structural changes that are included in this compromise. You all know, and you've heard me say this before, that I really ran for office because of my desire to support education, Connecticut education that gave me and my family everything. It is why I'm here. This is such a huge priority because I will believe, even though I never voted for a minimum wage increase, that I support education because the only way to close that income gap, the only way is to close the education gap. And this is why I'm looking at this budget with those lenses. A major concession to Republicans in this budget also was finally instituting a spending cap. That's huge. This has been sought after by Republicans for many, many, many years. The budget also includes a bonding cap and a requirement for the legislature to vote on all future union contracts. It replenishes the special transportation fund without enacting tolls. It eliminates the income tax on Social Security and private pensions for middle-income retirees, a huge issue because many people leave our state because of the income tax and the taxes on their pensions. And in particular, also it reforms our inheritance tax, which is another huge driver of individuals moving out of state. It provides for major municipal mandate relief that we have talked about in the Education Committee for years upon years. These are huge accomplishments, and we will have next session to keep working on further changes to the budget documents that may be passed this evening, and that I am very sure that we will do. So that's the good part of this budget. There's also some bad, and in some cases, ugly, and some of which I've had active and spirited debates by my colleagues on my side of the aisle just a few minutes ago out in the halls. And though we may still disagree vehemently on that, we did agree to work on it together going forward. So for those reasons, I am at the moment leaning yes, but I know that there's a few in our caucus that are going to be talking about the reasons why they can't support it, and I'm going to be listening very, very closely. But for me, the education issues remain to be my first priority because it is one of the last remaining real competitive advantages that Connecticut still has. And we have to do everything we can to at least protect that aspect of our state that brings people like my family, the aspirational class, forward and allows them to really be successful in our state. Thank you very much, Madam President.
Thank you. Will you remark further?